So the last thing I want to talk about today is, for this section here, is just a hearing that took place yesterday. This was the state Senate budget hearings with you had Chancellor Dan Greenstein, PASSHE Chancellor Dan Greenstein, basically testifying, basically that he was clearly agitated. If you watched any of the budget hearings yesterday, it was like, or his testimony before it, he's like, moving all around the place. He couldn't kind of keep still. It was just kind of a strange performance to kind of see on Zoom to begin with. Right, his teeth seemed particularly clenched throughout the whole thing. It was just kind of an odd thing. But anyways, there was the one point, he's been pushing. We had the folks from Lock Haven on this past Monday on Out the Coop Live talking about their kind of pushback against these merger plans between Lock Haven, Bloomsburg, and Mansfield. There's similar kind of pushbacks that are happening out in kind of Western PA. But so this is kind of like the time where we're going to hear what the plan is. And look, basically, Greenstein is basically saying, issued a threat during that hearing. Now, he claimed afterwards, well, that wasn't a threat. It was just a statement of fact. But this is kind of exactly what it's designed to do. So I just want to play this clip for you all so you can hear it firsthand, so you're not just hearing my characterizations of this. And then I just want to talk a little about some kind of what I see some of the issues with it. So here you go. This is I'm spacing the guy's name who's doing the questioning at this point, but this
Joe
is
Pittman.
Yeah, Joe Pittman, and then here's the Pittman's question, and then Chance's response.
That's where I'm struggling at this point, Chancellor, because I'm wondering what the value add of being part of the state system even is at this point.
So Senator, unless we figure this out, I will be recommending to the board that we come back to the Senate next year with a legislative package to dissolve the system, because if we continue to go down this path, what you're going to see is that cross-subsidization is going to drain all of us. Well, and then what does that mean?
So there you go. So basically this is him coming out and basically saying that, no, we can no longer support smaller schools in the system, places like Mansfield and things like this. We can no longer do that. And if you guys don't accept my package, then basically what's going to happen, I'm going to come back with a package of legislation that is going to dissolve the state system. And then Pittman follows that up with basically saying, yeah, I'll introduce that legislation for you.
I guarantee you, I wouldn't be surprised if that was a question forwarded to Pittman by someone in the inside PASSHE or the Chancellor's office.
That's what it sounded like to me. That sounded to me like that was a setup.
That's how these questions happen all the time on both sides of the situation. Any budget hearing, you have journalists. You usually have journalists, anyone from these organizations or stakeholder organizations within these within that are associated with the groups testifying. The state agencies are testifying,
right?
And this completely sound like a setup question that was forwarded to Pittman by someone within Greenstein's office or within the state system.
Right.
Just hearing that for the first time. I mean,
yep. Yeah. It was, you can hear it. It was teed up, right? I mean, this was laid there for him to deliver that line. Right. So now, and obviously, and what happens, right? Just to get a little kind of macro here, kind of what Sean is pointing up, is that the reason why you do that, right, is and then back away from it, right? Because a little bit later on, he kind of backs away. Well, I wasn't kind of saying it was a threat, right? Because State Senator Vincent Hughes comes on and said, well, you issued a threat. And Green says, no, it wasn't a threat. I was just talking about the seriousness and the gravity of this. But the reason why you do that is that you put that into the bloodstream, right? You deliver that, right? Even if you're going to back away from it. And basically what you've told all the faculty, staff, and students at all of these universities, right, is to be afraid. Right, is to be afraid and be scared. And
I also think it was kind of to check the temperature of other people within government too, because
yeah,
I mean, Governor Wolf came out right away and said he will not support any legislation dissolving the state system of higher education. So we'll see about that. But I mean, I think he was trying to do a temperature check on where people were at with that.
But this is my point, though, right? But my point is this, right? The goal, yes, Wolf came out and said that. Right. But I know, and I know this for a fact, just hearing some faculty talk about some of this in the aftermath, is basically that put everybody on notice. It's the same kind of crap when they tell us locally at each university they're going to go through retrenchment, right? Sometimes they mean it, sometimes it's just out there as a threat. But what that does is that makes everybody put their head down and worry. So instead of organizing, they think organizing is actually going to be something that will contribute to the downfall of the thing that they're fighting for. So, and what I heard that as very, very much, because there were several different town hall meetings and organizing events that had took place across the state this past week, right? One of them being at kind of Lock Haven. There was this press conference about the mergers. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. Up in Lock Haven, there's going to be a protest organized by ASME and ABSCUF and some student organizations up there. Basically, it's a message to them. If you continue to push back upon these plans, you are going to be responsible for the dissolution of the state system. And I know these folks enough that it's going to cause some of them people to worry and bolt and not want to organize because they don't want to be the cause of the downfall of the system, right? It is an anti-union, anti-organizing tactic to introduce fear into this discussion, right? And I've mentioned this 1,001 times.
It's probably also a veiled threat at the organizing students are doing at Kutztown.
Totally.
Like
those students that took him to task, right, and the president of Hawkinson for the kind of racist cop that they've got hired. They're keeping him on staff there for the lack of access to mental health services on campus, right? Things that they've been organizing around or continuing to organize around, all that stuff. He's feeling the heat. So what he's introducing the threat there. And it's also a message to all the university presidents to tamp all that shit down on all the campuses. Right? That's what goes on. So that's number one, right? So this is like the masks off moment for all those faculty members that have been out there, for all those staff members that have been out there, who have been out trying to kind of work with the chancellor and try to kind of do the shared governance thing that the chancellor claims that he wants to do. And we're going to play with the administration. This is a masks off moment for you people, right? I'm just saying, it's like, there you go. The guy's telling you that he's issuing you a threat that either you do what I want, right? Or I'm gonna wreck everything, right? I'm gonna just freaking mess all this shit up. I'll destroy what you love. That's what he's telling them, right? And I'll tell you, it's like this is a classic example of what goes on, and this is why there's two things that have happened like over the past several years, which brought us to this moment, right? Number one, and I said this on Twitter last night, as well as on Facebook, right? The dissolution and the destruction of the PA Student Power Network, right, has put student movements in this state, especially in the states of higher education, back like a decade. That organization, right, was the first time, and I've been working with student organizers as long as I've been at Kutztown, since 2002. And that was the first time that you saw an organic, grassroots, organizing, rank and file model of student organizing across the state. Was it the perfect organization? Did the organization kind of like, have its fits and starts? Of course it did. Something that monumental, right? Moving across the state, trying to organize 14 campuses in every corner of this, right? And I remember, we've talked about him on the show before, so I don't feel bad calling him out here. James Sarsonsky was one of the organizers for them who got that off the ground, that I helped work with him on the early days of getting that organization off the ground. And he would literally travel all over the state and work with these organizers. And some of these organizers, some of the chapters that were forming across the state were just absolutely incredible. And they were in their infancy. And instead of progressive organizations across the state making sure that organization thrived, right, we let it die. And that's on us, because it didn't need to die. And I'm not going to get into the details or the rumors or the background about why that happened, but I can tell you that did not have to happen. So that's number one. We destroyed, and I'll use I didn't personally, but they did not get the support they had, and there's segments of the left that are responsible for that organization going away, and that they're not being a statewide organized student movement right now. Number one. Number two, you've heard me talk about this before, is that after our strike, ABSCUF strike in 2016, right, we had an opportunity. We had in my view, a once in a generation opportunity to capitalize on the organized power that we had built up on that strike. and to move that into like deep organizing across the state at that point. We had an organizer at the state office who was 100% behind that. This guy, Chris, who was an amazing organizer, who helped us kind of do this, was kind of giving us workshops on our campus about how to do the deep organizing that we need on our campus. And by deep organizing, I don't mean just signing up people for union membership. I mean organizing people with strategies of how you fight back locally, how you act collectively, how to think about organizing, how to have conversations with your coworkers to ensure that you could have addressed problems at a local level. You've heard me talk about Mike Gambone, my friend at Kutztown, who he attempted to do this locally at Kutztown. Like, and again, I'm using that as a shorthand. Like, Mike wasn't the only one that was involved in that, but I know Mike was out in front, right? And again, that was not the model that was supported, right? Instead, we retreated as a union. And I can speak for myself. I feel personally in part guilty in part of that, but I can tell you also I was absolutely 100% spent at that point. I was exhausted. If we had not gone to a strike in 2016, I was going to go on the job market in 2016 because I was so disgusted with everything that was going on at Kutztown. I had my application letter ready. I had all this kind of stuff going. I was starting to approach people about letters of recommendation to get the hell out because I was destroyed by what they had done to education at Kutztown University and the lies that were coming from the administration. And it felt personally, it was too much of a mental tax. It was too much of a mental tax on me to maintain that. But when it looked like we were going to do the real organizing, real power, and actually move towards a real strike this time, I was like, there's no way I'm leaving for this. I'm going to be here for that. And I was our strike captain. I was work with Mike Gambone on kind of organizing. I had an amazing team of organizers to make what was going on at Kutztown. That was happening across the state. And if we had different union leadership, a different mentality at the time, I could see an approach being, say, we are not going to let this go away. We are going to help support this kind of organizing and double down on it. We are going to issue messages to all our chapter presidents that you need to keep this going. And we are going to give the resources to help you do it. Instead, and I don't know the reasons why, but I can just tell you in the aftermath of that, there was a slow return to business as usual. Having small groups of leaderships at each campus kind of work. And this wasn't true on every campus, but in many, if not most, small groups of people that would be working directly with the administration, and everybody else went back to kind of like, live their lives. It's like what happened like after the Obama victory, right? Win this big victory, then everybody goes back home and goes back to brunch or whatever, right? And now, when you see this full-on assault of going on against the state system of higher education, right? And a chancellor frankly, he's got more skills than any other chancellors that have been up until now, right? Because this guy comes out of, big money, Microsoft, Bill and Gates, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, higher education stuff. And he learned all his talk and strategy from the Silicon Valley folks, right? We're outgamed. And we don't have the organized infrastructure in order to accomplish that. And that is not on the fault of like any one individual or any fault of people, because I know there's people who have been trying their best to organize as best they can. But we just objectively speaking, we do not have that organized power at that point. Now, again, it's happening. People are organizing and things like this. There are students that are organizing. There are faculty that are organizing. AFSCME is organizing. That's all going to happen, right? So there's the good. But we cannot forget this lesson, right? Is like every single time that we allow a new chancellor to come in and we're like going to play nicely with these people, we get smacked. Every time that we believe the garbage that comes out of their mouth about, working together, we get smacked. And this time around, there's a highly competent guy there that's going to do this, and people are going to get hurt. Students are going to lose their programs. Local towns our economies are going to be crushed, and faculty are going to lose their jobs, right? And he's going to all do that and basically saying, and if you don't do that, I'm going to dissolve everything. That's what we're talking about. So everybody, masks off. Masks off. On deck now, if you're a part of the state system of higher education, you kind of care about public higher education in this state, now's the time. All right, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. We're going to be back right after this quick message with this week's Last Call.